mic to you, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Gosh, I don't know if anyone's ever called me a guru, but I accept. Thank you. So let me go ahead and get started. So it's so great to be here. Love talking about product. I also love Louisville. It is my home metro. My mom is from Louisville, so I spend a lot of holidays there. Both my parents are U of L grads, so I'm not saying that gives me a lot of street cred, but I'm definitely familiar with the area. So awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk to you all today about product-led growth. So there is not a huge crowd here. So I think if you have a burning question and you want to pop in, let's do it. So I have some content. I'm excited to talk through it, but I also am curious to hear kind of how people are implementing the strategy, thinking about product-led growth. So let's dig in.
Hey, Anna. Hey, yeah. Anna, you're sharing your presenter view, FYI.
There we go. Hold on a second, everybody. All right, let's try it again. I got to choose the desktop. How's that look?
Perfect.
Fantastic. All right. We won't let that slow us down. So a little bit about me. So I am a principal product partner at Innovate Map, which is a fancy way of saying I am a product manager there. And I work with a lot of tech companies, startups, scale-ups, bigger companies to kind of help them define what their product strategy is, how they want to bring a product to market, who to build, what to prioritize, roadmaps, backlogs. I do a lot of that work. And so at Innovate Map, our goal is really to help tech companies dream, design, and deliver winning products to market. So we are a product agency. We are very product focused. And we believe that better product is really marketable, valuable, usable. Marketable meaning it speaks well, it talks about itself. Valuable meaning people want it, they need it, it solves their problems. And usable, they are able to use it, it's intuitive, they can accomplish their goals. And so we are a mix of product professionals made up of, again, product management, what do you want to build, when and why? Product design, is that user experience good? Is it intuitive? Product brand, how does it talk about itself? The visual assets of the product, and product marketing, how does it talk about itself? And what's great about all of these disciplines is they are all so key in product-led growth. So it really positions us to think about product-led growth, to execute it for our clients. So that's us. But let me tell you a little bit about what I want to talk about today. So I want to talk about what product-led growth is, get into some tactics about how it works. Product-led growth is, like Mike said, it's not a new idea, but it's something that's just picking up more and more steam as the world changes. So there's lots of different ways to implement it, lots of different ways to think about it, and I want to go through a couple of those. And then I've got some questions for you, and I want to hear kind of your experiences with product-led growth or kind of what you were thinking about it. So get excited to ask those questions. If you do have questions while we're going, you can put those in the chat, and we will kind of get those at the end. All right. So what is product-led growth? So it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. Like I said, it's not a new concept. So the way that we really define product-led growth, so OpenView venture capital firm really coined the term product-led growth. And they put out some great thought leadership. So they're a really great resource. I recommend checking out if you want to learn more, but we really like their definition. So product-led growth is a go-to-market strategy that relies on product usage as the primary driver of acquisition, conversion, and expansion. And I want to focus on three key words there. I want to focus on acquisition. So that's just how to acquire new prospects. Conversion, how do you get those prospects to become paying customers? And then finally, expansion. How do you get paying customers to use your software longer and more extensively? And that's something we all want to do. So acquisition, conversion, and expansion, this used to be the focus of the marketing and the sales teams, but today this is happening in the product. So how did we get here? So I want to talk a little bit about the background of the changes in the world that really led to product-led growth. So let's talk about the old days. Software was really the realm of the IT team. So when you got new software in your company, it meant it was on premise. So if you got something new, that was a lot of money to build, a lot of money to implement. You had to train everybody in the organization, and then you had to maintain it. And every time there was an upgrade, everything was coming on premise, more training, more implementation. So it was just a huge cost that built and built and built. So really with these IT gatekeepers, acquisition was a sales team interacting at the highest level of a company. So this was the CEOs, the CIOs, those big buying decisions were interacting with the sales team from the software company. Very, very top-down decisions. So again, the CEO, the CIO is making that decision and kind of rolling out software to everyone in the company. Marketing was really, really targeted to those high-level buyers. And when it came to conversion, really long-term contracts, years and years of contracts, nothing short-term, free trials didn't make sense. Maybe there would be betas. Expansion was really sales-led. It was a salesperson really nurturing a long-term relationship, extensive customizations. If you wanted to upgrade, very, very long processes, and static and training documentation was unchanging. And this is the point where the end user really got to be a part of that. So they weren't even coming in, they weren't even getting the product until a lot of processes had taken place. So let's talk about some of the things that have changed in the world that have upended these processes. So things have changed. Obviously, the rise of cloud computing. The SaaS delivery model is the default. I mean, most software companies, shouldn't say any and every, because this is recorded and you guys can call me out. But most companies are using this software as a service delivery model. Subscription business models is really the way to go. Integrations are so commonplace. You expect software to be able to work with each other. Elastic infrastructure, big performance capabilities improvements, the spread of the internet to common communications. I mean, everyone is using software all the time it's not just in your work, it's in your everyday. And really search engines. I mean, it's so easy for me as a consumer to find anything I need, and that includes kind of even my B2B software. And because of these changes, some things have become obsolete. So rigid internal infrastructure is just not the way things work anymore. When is the last time you saw software on a disk? You're all silent, probably because you're muted, but I bet it's been a while. Upgrades, all-in-one solutions are really not the way anymore. We have software that's much more specialized, lengthy training classes, and then static documentation. This is just not the way things go anymore. But this has given rise to some new opportunities. So again, flexible cloud architectures, internet as the delivery mechanism. I can download anything I need. It's right at my fingertips. Flexible subscription packages from very, very low to very high usage. So people aren't buying the way they used to either. It's not just a one-time it's not just a one-time transaction. Best of class solutions. I think we're in a golden age of software, just like a golden age of television. I think some of the software out there right now is so great and so good and so specialized. Marketing is happening at all levels of the organization. It's not just the top, it's not just the CEO, the CIO, it's the end user. It's everybody up and down the chain is getting marketed from these software companies. Easy access to training, help, and how-tos. It's so easy to spin up a wiki. It's so easy to pull in Zendesk using Notion. It's really, really easy to kind of get people training and up and running on your product. So let's talk about the new days. Everybody uses software for everything, not just at work, you're using it at home. I don't know about you, but a lot of my professional software bleeds into my personal life for a lot of organizational needs. And delivery is instant. I can immediately download an app. I immediately download any new software. I am up and running in an instant. And this is cheaper to build, implement, train, maintain. Everything has gotten cheaper. So what does this look like? That means the end user can be a part of acquisition. An end user has a problem, they Google it, they find a solution, they try it on their own. This is how Slack made its way into so many companies. People heard about it, they were interested, they invited a couple team members, and before you know it, it's a quorum. Conversion. If an end user is convinced that there is value, they can pay for a low tier package. They can try something out. They can do a free trial. We see a lot of this with people who have company credit cards are just kind of signing up for things, and before you know it, IT's like, wow, we're paying for a lot of Slack. And expansion. The end user, they can invite more, they can invite others, they can upgrade to unlock new features. So IT will get involved a lot of times, but it's a lot later in the process than the end user actually making that initial connection. So let's talk a little bit about what product-led growth means. How do we get there? So it's about creating growth through features that enable self-service everything. Self-service education, trial, sign up, implementation, billing, sharing, renewing, upselling. You're not stopping people from doing anything. You're not making them call to get a demo. You're not making them call to upgrade or to give you more money. You're making it seamless. It's just part of the product. So how does it actually work? So what are some tactics that you can take from here to say some ways to kind of implement PLG in the work that you're doing? So I want to think about it through these three big buckets. Again, acquisition, conversion, and expansion. All right. So acquisition is people being aware of your product, having a reason to experience your product, and then having a reason to come back. So for example, Slack, when it comes to acquisition, brand is very, very key. When you don't have salespeople out explaining your product, brand has to do a lot more work. The moment somebody Googles your problems, Googles your software, that is the initial brand point, and your brand has to be strong. The visual identity, the tone of voice, this is the front door to your solution. And it's really something of a differentiator. So Slack is a great example because Slack is not a lot of new functionality. The idea of a chat-based interface, I mean, we've been doing that as long as we've had computers, right? But what they did is they built a huge brand around themselves, and really that brand is a moat. So other companies can copy what Slack does, but they cannot copy their brand. It's uniquely theirs. It's very friendly. It's very inviting. It felt very, very different as a B2B brand. So if you're thinking about PLG, brand is critical to making sure that first touch point with your customer is a really positive one. So think about this as you think about brand. So is your product approachable? Does it have a recognizable identity and voice? Do people remember it? Do they see it? Do they recognize it? And does that experience feel right for your target audience? I mean, friendly and approachable is not always the right tone for every product. So, what does your audience want to hear? What do your customers want to hear? Especially what do your end users want to hear from you? So let's talk about another really, really important part of acquisition, and that is first time UX. So you got to give people a way to experience your product. That means you have to have a great onboarding process. So when users get into your product, you need to help them know what to do. So this is Slack does this. I'm going to use Slack for all my acquisition examples because they do this really, really well. The first time you log into Slack, it is telling you exactly what's happening. It's showing you what to do. It's getting you to invite other people because it knows that is the best way for you to have a good Slack experience. We all just want to feel really smart and really understood. And an onboarding experience can make a user feel like that. The more you can guide them through this setup, the more you can show them the breadth and the depth and functionality, and you can get them really up and running. First time UX is really important to get to that first meaningful interaction. And the meaningful interaction that's when someone has really connected with your product. So Facebook, for example, I think I don't know how old this information is, so don't quote me on it, but I believe it was like, if you get 7 friends on Facebook, if I had 7 people as friends, I'm good to go. Like, I'm going to stick around because I'm really starting to see the value. Onboarding and first time UX is key to really drive people to that moment of meaning. So think about your audience. Do they have a way to actually give your product a chance? Do you have a free trial? If you don't have a free trial, if you have a really complicated product, are you giving them a different way to experience your product? Do you have a more experiential website where they can kind of see what the product does, even if they're not in it? Do you have a way to get them to that key value prop? How do you get them to that meaningful moment, and how quickly can you do it? All right. And then finally, you have to give people a reason to come back. It's not just enough for people to come once and check you out and then leave. So what reason are you giving for them to return? So with Slack, I might come back because I know someone I invited is now in Slack. So Slack is constantly, letting me know, get your coworkers in here, collaborate with someone. It's always pushing you to kind of do the things it knows is going to keep you in the system. Not to mention, get people in your marketing drip. So as soon as they sign up, as soon as they try it, what that experience is going to be like. Ask them how it's going. Ask them if they've, created a new channel. So there's all kinds of ways. You want to make sure that not only are you giving people a great first time experience, you want them to come back and keep seeing that value. So do you give people a reason to come back? Are they coming back? Are you solving a specific problem or providing new value? Are you continuing to show them the ways that they can find value from your product? And are people in your marketing drip? I mean, I think, I don't know the last time I signed up for a software product where I wasn't in a marketing drip, where it wasn't asking me specific questions. I mean, I don't know how many times you guys have got that email where it's like, hey, I'm the CEO of this product. Tell me what you think about it. All right, so a couple key takeaways from acquisition. When the product's job is to draw people in, the brand identity has to be powerful enough to speak for itself. The value prop has to be obvious, and it has to be available to be experienced. Now, again, that can be via a free trial or a very experiential something on your website. The experience has to be intuitive, uncomplicated, empathetic, and even enjoyable. If you can make it enjoyable, that's even better. Marketing has a really powerful place in educating, positioning, reminding, and capitalizing on the leads that product qualifies. So the moment someone signs up for your product, they are a very, very, very warm lead. And this is a great place for marketing to be. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about conversion. So you've got people there. How do you get them to pay? So conversion is turning a prospective user, turning a prospective user and a user into a paying user. So providing the right value prop, the ability to let them inform themselves, and you got to give them a way to start paying. It's amazing how many pieces of software have no upgrade button, do not let you put in a credit card. It's a pretty frustrating experience. So there's a couple of different tactics you can try. And I say tactics, these are not mutually exclusive tactics. You can try some of these or all of these. All of these are actually great in tandem. So there's freemium. You can give some functionality free forever. This is a really, really common one. I think Slack does this really well. Airtable is one that does this really well. This is great when getting users is more important than getting paying users, when you're really trying to scale your users and your user engagement. Free trial is really great. It's very common. And this is where all the functionality is free, but for a short time. And this is really important when getting the right users is more important than getting a lot of users. So getting the right users, meaning you want to get the users that match the value that you're offering. Other than that, you can build a fan base. Communities are a key strategy when it comes to kind of building out your software product. You want to hook users on content and expertise. So this is great when the price and the level of effort may be pretty high to engage. So if you have a really expensive product, if you have one that needs kind of a lot of customization or implementation, building a fan base is really good because it keeps your product in the top of people's minds. So let's dig into these a little bit. So Dropbox is a great example of getting a free account. So their basic value proposition is, get a file on your different devices. So they've basically made that basic value prop free, but they have monetized the valuable use cases. So the more space you need, if you actually start, backing up lots of photos, if you want to share with lots of people, you're going to hit a quota, and that's when they're going to start to monetize you. So one great example of this, Calendly is a really great example of this. You can share Calendlys with anyone. I could send it out, but if I want to invite someone else to join the group, if I want to start getting into collaborative features, that's where they're going to start to monetize. So it's looking at really what is the value prop that you can make free, and then how do you monetize from there. Another good example of this is Duolingo. So Duolingo, they provide, help you learn another language. Their language services are always free. You can use Duolingo to learn any language that you want. But if you want to sync offline, you'll have to upgrade to that next paid tier. If you want to, you get it like I can't remember what it's called, but you get like something for doing it every day. And if you miss a day, but you want to save your streak, you can upgrade, and that's a premium feature. So what they do is they offer language for free forever, but they monetize convenience. So it's good to look at your use cases. What are the most valuable ones? Where do you want people to see value? And then where can you monetize? So let's talk about the free trial. So the free trial, there is really no freemium here when it comes to Dropbox Business. And this immediately disqualifies some people, but it qualifies others. So when it's important that you make sure that this is about getting the right user, not about getting many, many users. So you don't necessarily want people to free trial a business plan, because moving all your files from your business is not an easy, setup. So this is all about making sure you have the right person, and you're giving them the confidence to say, if this isn't working for you, you can get out of it. And then finally, build a fan base. This is becoming more and more popular. You want to cultivate and capitalize on people, even if they're not ready for your product. So InVision is a really, really good example of this. InVision is a tool for UX designers to share their work. And it is, it actually does have a freemium model. So you can have one project in InVision forever, just one project. If you want to add someone else, to it, that's going to cost money. If you want to have another product, that's going to cost money. But they have a huge design community. They put out a lot of thought leadership. They do, again, design forums. They do conference. They do talks. They have done such a good job building their community. So all these UX designers, they know InVision, they learn from InVision, and then when they go to their company and they need a tool, they're going to think about InVision. So it's all about kind of building up these niche communities. And so when they're ready to make the upgrade, when they need that tool, they're going to think about you. So a couple of key takeaways from conversion. When the product is charged with converting users, value builds that trust, and trust, good UX, will enable that conversion. These tactics can definitely be mixed and matched, but they need to match your business goals. So make sure you're not just willy-nilly using all of them, making sure you're using the ones that really align to what you want to accomplish. And identify those use cases that people are willing to pay for, because those are the triggers, those are the levers that you can pull to get people to upgrade. All right. So let's talk about expansion. So this is a fun one. So expansion is turning your users into a marketing channel while growing your user base and upselling within that user base. So you've got people in your product. Now you want to use them to market. Now you want to grow, and now you want to upsell. So first of all, build it into the product. Again, this is a place where InVision is really, really strong. They make it very easy for me to share InVision with people in the product. So I've got some UX designs. I want to share them out. It's no problem. It's a snap. I can actually add people to InVision, or if you look down here at the bottom, I can just share them. I can just create a quick link and I can share it. And then they look at my screens, they see powered by InVision, really, really easy. So we see this a lot. The proliferation of the share button is all over software these days. So it's almost like this digital word of mouth. If I get an email from someone that says, hey, check out my screens in InVision, it's a lot more powerful than me just seeing an ad about InVision. Just-in-time upgrading. So this is, again, you have a good sense of what the value props of your product are, and you are hitting people right in the moment where it makes sense. So this is Airtable, a great example of Airtable. So Airtable have a freemium model where you can use Airtable for free forever, but they've got a couple of new upgrades. And what they've done is, you can see here, I'm building my Airtable, but I want to add color, but I can't. That's on the next tier. So they're showing me the functionality, but they're letting me know, hey, this is on the premium tier and you're not there. So it's not stopping me from accomplishing my goal. I still have a lot of value in Airtable, but I just can't do a couple of those cool flares that I want to do. Same with Airtable blocks, or what they're calling Airtable apps now. So these are more of the more powerful features of Airtable. Again, they're showing it to me. They're not hiding it from me. They're not, pulling away these premium features. They're showing me that there's value here, but I have to upgrade to see those. So what it does is, maybe today's not the day I upgrade, but the more I use it, the more I know it's available. It's like, gosh, color would be great right now for this thing I'm building. Maybe it's time to upgrade. Incentivize invites. This is something Dropbox did really, really early on. And this is, again, why product-led growth is not a new idea. I don't know if you guys remember signing up for Dropbox a long time ago, but if you invited a friend, I think you got 10 gigs of space, which I don't know about you. I invited a lot of friends. So I wanted a lot of that space. So incentivize people. So again, Dropbox, invite friends, you get extra storage space. Airtable does the same thing. Refer people. If I just invite someone to join my Airtable, I get $10 in Airtable credit. If Airtable credit was a currency, I would be a very rich person. So just think about that. But incentivize people. Give them something for inviting them. And then brand the experience. So again, Calendly has this freemium model. I can use it just to get anything scheduled. But every time someone goes to my Calendly to schedule, they see it's powered by Calendly. So this is where the UX of the experience is so important, because if I come here, I click a date, I'm like, gosh, this was great. This was really easy. What is this? Oh, it's powered by Calendly. That's cool. I could find some value there. So we heard the CEO of Calendly talk, and he's in Atlanta, and he was working with a dev team to get Calendly built. And they wanted to actually gate down. They wanted it to be to pay, but he ran out of money. And so basically the whole thing was free. He didn't have any more money for developers. And his developers were working with another startup, and that startup started using Calendly because they liked it. And that startup was a startup for teachers. So they started using it to schedule time with teachers, and teachers loved it. So teachers started using Calendly to schedule appointments with their students' parents, and their parents loved it. So Calendly literally spread like that. It went from other software company to teachers to parents and kind of grew from there. And all because he did not make any of the features. You didn't have to pay for any of the features. So what they do now, though, Calendly does make you pay if you want to have some collaborative features. But it's a really interesting way that if he had not just added that powered by Calendly, who knows if people would have found out that that was the software that they were using. Okay, a couple takeaways from expansion. So when the product needs to grow accounts, don't make it hard for people to give you their money. Show users how they can get more value right when they need it or want it. It's great in context. Capitalize on your value to incentivize your users to invite others. They're obviously finding value in your product. Give them a really easy way to share it. And branded experiences, they're really like a digital word of mouth. It's a great way to allow people who value what you do to effortlessly share it with others. Okay. All right, so quick recap. So what product-led growth is and it isn't. So number one, seamless conversion. So it's all about meeting people where they are, giving them the value they want when they want it. It's not just about a freemium model. Freemium is just one tactic of product-led growth. It's about targeted and strategic sales activity. It's not about eliminating sales. So product-led growth is a way to get people into your product. So one thing we know is that when there's a majority of people in a company using a product, that is a great moment for a sales team to step in. So again, that's something we've seen with Slack. That's something we see with Calendly. Once Calendly sees that your company, like 50% of your employees are using it, they're going to approach with the sales team and be like, hey, we have enterprise models. Why don't we get you on one account? So not only is your sales team coming in to an extremely warm lead, the company is already seeing the value of the tool. This is marketing and product working together in harmony. It's not about replacing marketing. That's why product-led growth is so interesting. It is so cross-disciplinary. It's all about the product. It's all about the UX, and it's all about marketing as well. So these functions have to work together to ensure they have a great experience there. And this one is my favorite. UX is the flower in the cake. It's not the icing on the cake. It is foundational that you have a great, intuitive, beautiful experience. It has to be there for people to want to see your product, to buy your product, and to get into your product. If they start using your product and it doesn't work and it's unintuitive and they can't accomplish what they want, there's no way they're going to keep going. Okay. So that's pretty much all I have to say about product-led growth. But now I'm really curious to hear from people. What aspects of product-led growth have been working for you? What things have you tried? What things are you struggling with? We could probably check out some questions, yeah? All right.
That was perfect. Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah, of course.
I know there's a couple questions in the chat, mostly from me, because I'm fascinated by this stuff. But I know Sarah was the first one to jump in. She said, who is typically in charge of product-led growth, marketing or product management?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's one really interesting thing about product-led growth is companies are doing it really differently. So some companies, especially B2C companies, have very dedicated growth teams. And these teams are generally interdisciplinary, and they include designers, they include product managers, they include data analysts, because data is a huge part of product-led growth, measuring what people are doing. So we've seen a lot of growth teams pop up around this. We've also seen, I think Pendo is a good example where they just pull together cross-discipline people and kind of make a pop-up team to accomplish a goal. And then I think those people move out and do other things. So I don't know that there's one clear way that we see people accomplish product-led growth because again, it's tied to the product, it's tied to the UX, but you've got to have someone from marketing involved as well. So I think growth teams are one way, but I think other people are just kind of trying to figure it out as they go.
So a collaborative, multidisciplinary team.
Very collaborative, yeah, very multidisciplinary.
All right, so we heard from Lacey yesterday or 2 days ago, and she also mentioned InVision and to share designs. And I'm curious, is this for MVP testing? Is it for wireframe testing? Like how soon and how often should someone that's creating a digital product utilize something like this?
Yeah, I mean, so the Envision is a tool, to share screens. So if you are a designer and you're creating something in your tool of choice, Sketch, XD, Figma, well, you probably wouldn't use Figma if you use Figma, but neither here nor there. So Envision is all about being able to take your screens and share them with someone. So if it's a prototype, Envision has functionality that allows you to kind of tie things together. You can make a clickable prototype. We use Envision to review work with clients. We use it to do user validation. You can get comments on it. So it's really just a way to share work. But Envision, the company, has been so smart in utilizing product-led growth to kind of grow their business. It's super easy for me to share. So every time that I, share screens with a client or with someone I'm doing user validation with, it generally will say like powered by Envision. So they have that kind of really branded experience. Does that answer your question?
So I could have like a slide, even a PowerPoint deck. Not necessarily.
It's not the best use for Envision. Envision is really, really designed for product design. So it's designed for screens and flows and clicking around. So it's great for prototype testing. So if you do have a prototype and you want to put it in front of someone, you can put it in Envision, you can tie it all together, and then you grab a link and you share it out. It's very, very easy to share.
Okay. I'm trying to think of ways for maybe the less technically inept entrepreneurs to get in there and get started. Thank you for the answer. That's a good one. I've heard of that one before. My next question is, I always struggle with, the double-edged sword of how to monetize. When we discuss freemium versus paid versions or free trials, I never pay for removal of ads. I have Spotify. I'm a big Pandora user still, but I do not pay to skip ads. I just don't. And I will try to I'm cheap, and I will try to get away with any and all freemium accounts as long as I can. How do you ensure you're not giving too much away? How do you make sure that there is, you accommodate for people like me that are trying their best to avoid paying?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard. I think one of the things that's really hard to do is to kind of course correct yourself and say, oh no, we're giving too much away. Now we need to start monetizing it. But I mean, I really go back to monetizing those use cases specifically. You need to understand how and where people find value in your product. And then how does that align to the business goals you want to accomplish? So Spotify, great example. So for me, I hate ads, but it's not always enough to get me to upgrade. I watch Hulu with ads. I do my best. But for me, the reason I upgraded to Spotify is because I could sync, I could download, and I could have it locally. So as a person who kind of, goes out to places that don't always have access to internet, that was really, really valuable for me. So that was the value prop that got me to upgrade to Spotify. Also being able to kind of share things across devices was really valuable. But I think Calendly is a really good example of that too. Again, you can use Calendly as much as you want, but the moment you try to start bringing another person in, doing anything collaborative or getting into those advanced features, that's when you're going to hit paywall. So it's so critical and critically important to understand where people are finding the value, because you want to get people to, like, again, those meaningful moments, but you don't need to give away the farm to do that as well. So monetizing for convenience, monetizing for collaboration. A lot of, Envision is a great example of monetizing for collaboration. As soon as you want to bring someone else into Envision, you're going to have to upgrade to another tier. Same with Figma, they do that as well. So there are a couple of tactics like that other people have done that you can try. But again, it's all about monetizing those value props.
What are the other ones? You mentioned convenience, collaboration. Like how many of them are?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I can think of any off the top of my brain. Convenience, collaboration. Those are two really big ones. I don't know. Does anyone else have is there anything that anyone here uses that they upgraded? They went, it's got a free tier, but you upgraded for a certain reason. I think, okay, I'm going to answer my own question. So Airtable is a really good example. So Airtable, they upgrade you on so if you want to use apps or blocks, as they call them, They're very, very powerful. They can take kind of your Airtable and they can turn it into data visualization, or you can do like really powerful scripting or other than that. So Airtable upgrades on power. It also upgrades on number of records. So again, Airtable understands that the value that people find in Airtable is the amount of content you put in an Airtable. So you can't have more than 1,000 records. But it's also the ability to kind of, bring in really powerful tools to kind of tie into your Airtable, because people run whole products off of Airtable. So if you're going to do something like that, you're going to need to upgrade. So yeah, it's a good question though.
I don't want to take everyone's ability to ask questions. What other questions do we have for?
Brittany agrees with me about Spotify monetizing the convenience. I'm all about I'm all about paying for convenience the older I get.
Well, I've got more, so I'll keep going unless someone wants to jump in. What is the most creative means of customer acquisition that you've been seeing lately, and or creative ways of creating that conversion portion? And flip side of that question, are there any tactics that people used to use that, somehow people figured out how to game the system and no longer being done?
Tactics that people used to use. So one, I think I'll start with that one first and then I'll go to your other question. So I think we see that it's an older tactic. I think call for a demo is kind of just like going the way of the dinosaur, honestly. Now there are some
call for demo
very complicated products where you need help to get them up and running. It really depends on your audience. But for the most part, if you have to call somebody for a demo, like
you're a bottleneck.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, total bottleneck. Exactly. So if you are targeting, and again, this is all about who you're targeting, right? But if you are targeting an end user, you got to give people something to try. You got to let people get on. And the more this proliferates around the ecosystem, the more people are going to expect it as well. I don't know how many times, whenever I hit either a call to demo or a call to upgrade, if I have to talk to a person, no, thank you. We're done here. So that's just me. But it's a huge bottleneck. I mean, why not give people the option to upgrade? One really interesting thing that we saw, so Figma. So Figma is it's a design tool. And basically what you can do in Figma is they charge per user. So if I'm a person who has Figma, I start inviting PMs. I want them to look at my work. All of a sudden, our account has grown. And what Figma will do is they will let you add as many, even you have a certain number of licenses, they're going to let you add whoever you want. And then at the end of the quarter, at the half year, basically someone from Figma will call you and say, hey, we see you added a bunch of people here. Like, let's figure out what this looks like. Do you want to keep these people? Do you want to pay for these people? Do you want to kick them off? But basically what they're doing is they're not saying, oh, you're out of licenses, don't add any more people. They want everyone in the company to see the value of Figma and love Figma. So what they do is they bring in their account execs, and they'll make contact after those people are already in Figma, after they're already seeing the value, because it's a lot harder to pull something away from someone than to stop them and still get them to sign up.
Or prevent them from ever starting.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's kind of a time sensitive trial almost.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. But it's also just like, it's completely frictionless to get people to sign up. So, you want to get as many people as you can using the product and finding value. And like, you'll figure out the licenses later. You'll figure out the monetization later.
Does that mean that they have to compromise on price sometimes? Like, I'm sure there's teams that say, I'm not willing to pay that much.
That is a really good question. I don't know that I have an answer to. And then you said creative ways of acquiring customers. One thing that's really interesting, if you want to see a really extreme example of like product-led growth, I think Expensify is a really interesting example. So Expensify is a tool for just logging expenses, right? So, kind of a boring B2B type product. What Expensify does is they're very product-led growth. They target end users. They target somebody like me who's got to submit some expenses, not necessarily someone approving, but someone who's submitting. So they want people like me to be like, oh, I got to submit a report. So I'll go to Expensify's website. To even look at their website, you have to give an email. It's very, very bold when it comes to PLG. But as soon as I give them an email, I'm in an onboarding flow. they're asking me, what's your work email? What expenses do you have? And what they're going to do is they're going to generate an expense report to me that I can email on to the person who I need to, file my expenses with. And what that does is it allows me as a user to use the product without my company actually using the whole thing. I'm still able to send that expense report on. And then when the person who does my expenses gets that report, they say, oh, Expensify, interesting. I'm going to look into that. So it's almost like guerrilla warfare to kind of get in at the bottom of the company and just really grow inside of it. So Expensify is they're a very interesting company, just kind of across the board in software, but really interesting PLG product.
Thank you for that. What other questions do we have? I'd love to hear from some UX people and some product managers, because I am neither.
Well, I see some questions in the chat.
Oh.
So let's see. Sarah says, I've purchased software products for work based on which product I could get it and use the fastest. 100%. I mean, I definitely agree with, and that's kind of what, again, because product is so important. Basically what you're saying is you are leading with your product. And you're saying, user, if you get in here and start using this, you're going to love it. We know it. We know you'll find that value. And so it's a really confident kind of flex. Brittany is asking about intrusive chatbots. Ugh. Yeah, it's just too much these days, isn't it? That's a really good question.
Is it better to give those bots a name and pretend to be a person?
I don't know.
You know that they're not. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're not people. Even though it's like, hi, I'm so and so from so and so. I mean, they're not people. I think what's great about the bots, I'll say this about the bots. Well, knowing how they work on the back end, they'll get you to a person faster. At least it's not call somebody for a demo. So I'll say that for the bots, like at least you can make a contact with someone. But ideally, I can just go sign up for your free trial. I can just go try out your product. I can get in there immediately. And if I need help, I think bots are great when you need help in the product. So like having that intercom there is not a bad idea. But really, you shouldn't use a bot. You shouldn't use a bot to get somebody up and running. It's kind of a crutch. You should be getting people into your product, or at least getting them to experience your value prop, however that looks on your site.
Good question, Brittany.
Thanks. That came up to mind when you were talking about like tactics that are kind of like a little long in the tooth these days.
That's a really good example. Very, very good example.
Do you have any other like played out tactics that stop doing?
That's a good question.
Or flip side, what tactics are your like go-to? You need to have this to really get going in a digital world.
Yeah, I mean, love a free trial. Free trials are great. One free trial that I think is really interesting. So there's this tool called You Need a Budget. It's, well, YNAB for short, if you are a budgeter. But so YNAB is all about budgeting, and their free trial is 35 days long specifically, because they believe if you use it for a full month, you will see the value of just tracking expenses. So it's really hard to blanket say, because we all work in different industries. We all have different types of customers. Some have, really fun. We're doing like fun B2C work. Some is like very complicated, very serious, like, regulated industry type work. So it's not really a one size fits all necessarily, but I think it's like looking for those opportunities. So another really interesting example that we've seen is Upkeep. So Upkeep is a tool for maintenance workers to keep track of their work, what they're doing, what they're cleaning, et cetera. So you would think that there's no opportunity necessarily for product-led growth there, but what they do is if you go to upkeep.com on your desktop, it's going to tell you about the product. It's going to tell you, what it does, what it can do for your company, how it can save you money. If you go to upkeep.com on a mobile device, you'll be directed to download the app. And the app is all about helping maintenance workers keep track of tasks and keep track of things that they need to do. So it's really targeting people on kind of two different channels to do two different things. And so again, a B2B company that's in kind of an older industry, implementing some of these tactics for PLG, saying, if we get enough maintenance workers using it on this team, then ideally the person above can be like, oh, okay, this is a thing that everybody's using. I see some value here. Like maybe we should upgrade the whole company.
And you're talking about computer programming maintenance, not maintenance like.
No, I'm talking about like cleaning maintenance,
Oh.
like cleaning hotels, cleaning businesses, like that kind of maintenance. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I totally went the other route with that one.
Yeah. So if you're not sick of listening to me, we did a whole PLG series on our podcast, the Better Product Podcast. And we did talk to the CEO of Upkeep, and it was a really good conversation. All of our PLG conversations in that series were very, very good. So that's another good resource I recommend, because a lot of my examples you're going to hear from there where I learned from these really, really smart, amazing people who are doing PLG.
Any other questions for Anna?
I have a question that's better explained verbally than written down, I think. So it sounds like there's revenue opportunity now within the product in ways that it hasn't happened before. Like marketing and sales would have primarily been responsible for driving that acquisition and conversion and expansion, but now product is kind of leading that. So is that a shift that you're seeing within like business ops of a company or a tech company, where like is a product person having a seat at the revenue table discussions now? Because if you're putting in a feature that's allowing people to upgrade and they're doing it, I mean, certainly somebody should be getting credit for that, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think the opposite is probably also true. If we are expecting product people to be bringing in revenue, do they need to be held accountable to numbers in the way that product is not held accountable today? Yeah, I don't have a really good answer for that, but I think it is a really interesting question. And I think it goes to the idea of how is PLG kind of upending just operational or organizational norms, and how we think about how product teams are actually structured, how they're so siloed kind of into their disciplines, and PLG is kind of forcing the work to happen across. Yeah, I think that's like one of those things we're hopefully going to see companies experiment with more and more to kind of find those models that are working. It's a great question.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and hit stop on the recording unless there's anything else.
Well, there is the Better Product Speaker Series that I do want to let people know about. So I don't know when they'll be watching this recording or whatever, but they started October 28th. We're doing them weekly for, Sarah, you can tell me how many weeks because it has fallen out of my brain.
Till Thanksgiving.
Till Thanksgiving, yeah. So every Wednesday we're having a conversation with another. This lineup is phenomenal. Really smart product people. So if you want to learn more, check out betterproduct.community/speaker series.
Will these be recorded as well, you said?
They will.
Yes.